The briefing room at Naval Support Activity Bahrain smelled of burned coffee and diesel exhaust seeping through the ventilation system. Lieutenant Commander Jake Reeves stood before a tactical display showing the serpentine coastline of Iran, its southern ports glowing red against a digital map. Outside, the pre-dawn darkness concealed a sprawling naval base, but inside, under fluorescent lights, 12 naval aviators and sensor operators were about to receive orders that would define their deployment. Gentlemen, the situation has changed. Reeves tapped the screen, zooming into the Strait of Hormuz, the 21-mile-wide choke point through which 20% of the world's oil passed daily. 72 hours ago, SIGINT picked up increased submarine activity out of Bandar Abbas. Iranian Navy Kilo-class diesel-electric boats, at least 2, possibly 3, now operating in the Gulf. Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, a sonar systems operator with 15 years hunting Soviet submarines in the Atlantic, leaned forward. The Kilos were Russian-made, notoriously quiet when running on battery power, designed specifically for shallow water operations. The Persian Gulf, with its average depth of just 160 feet, was their natural habitat, a nightmare environment for American acoustic detection. Sir, the Gulf's ambient noise signature makes ASW almost impossible, Webb said, his Tennessee drawl cutting through the tension. Shipping traffic, oil platforms, thermal layers. It's acoustic chaos down there. I'm aware, Senior Chief. Reeves pulled up satellite imagery showing the congested waterways. Hundreds of commercial vessels, fishing boats, and tankers created a constant symphony of propeller noise. But that's exactly why Tehran thinks they can hide. Our job is to prove them wrong. The mission parameters were clear. VP-16, flying the P-3 Orion Maritime patrol aircraft, would conduct round-the-clock surveillance operations, deploying sonobuoys, sophisticated acoustic sensors dropped from aircraft, to create detection nets across suspected submarine transit routes. The Orion, originally designed during the Cold War, remained the Navy's premier subhunter, a 4-engine turboprop packed with radar, magnetic anomaly detectors, infrared sensors, and enough sonobuoys to blanket an ocean. Lieutenant Sarah Chun, the tactical coordinator known as TACO in crew vernacular, studied the Iranian order of battle. If they're deploying Kilos, they're not just posturing. These boats carry wake-homing torpedoes and anti-ship missiles. One boat in the right position could close the strait for days. The geopolitical context hung over everything. In 2007, the Bush administration had ramped up pressure on Iran over its nuclear program. Naval exercises had become increasingly aggressive. The USS John C. Stennis Carrier Strike Group was operating nearby, a massive show of force. Iranian Revolutionary Guard fast boats had begun harassing U.S. warships. Now, submarine deployments suggested Tehran was preparing for potential conflict. Rules of engagement are defensive, Reeves emphasized. We track, we trail, we report. We do not prosecute unless fired upon or ordered by NAVCENT. But make no mistake, if those boats position themselves near carrier assets or the strait, this becomes a national security priority. The crew filed out toward the flight line where their P-3 Orion waited, its white and gray camouflage paint scheme barely visible in the darkness. The aircraft looked ungainly on the ground, 121 feet long, high-winged, with 4 Allison turboprop engines jutting forward. But in the maritime surveillance role, it was a masterpiece. 11 hours of endurance, capable of flying at 200 feet above the waves or climbing to 28,000 feet for strategic radar sweeps. Webb climbed through the belly hatch, moving through the cramped fuselage toward his station. The interior resembled a flying intelligence center, rows of sensor consoles, acoustic analysis workstations, radar displays, and the sonobuoy launcher system capable of dropping 84 individual sensors. The smell of electronics, coffee, and military-grade disinfectant filled the recycled air. As dawn broke over the Gulf, the Orion's engines roared to life, their distinctive prop wash rattling the fuselage. Chen ran through the pre-flight checklist with mechanical precision. Behind her, 3 acoustic sensor operators, AWS in Navy parlance, were already calibrating their systems, preparing to listen to the ocean's secrets. VP-16, you're clear for departure. Godspeed. The tower's transmission crackled through headsets. The Orion lumbered down the runway, slower than a fighter jet, heavier than a cargo plane, but purpose-built for one mission, finding things that didn't want to be found. As the wheels left the tarmac, Reeves banked east toward Iranian waters, descending to 500 feet above the emerald green Gulf. The hunt had begun. The first sonobuoy pattern went into the water 30 miles southeast of Bandar Abbas, the Iranian naval base where intelligence suggested the submarines had departed. Chun coordinated the drop sequence. Passive acoustic sensors spaced 2 miles apart in a barrier line perpendicular to the expected submarine transit route. Buoy 1 away. Buoy 2 away. The pneumatic launcher hissed as cylindrical sensors tumbled from the aircraft's belly, deploying parachutes before splashing into the warm Gulf waters. Once submerged, each buoy extended a hydrophone array, listening for the acoustic signature of submarine machinery, the whine of electric motors, the rhythmic pulse of propellers, the subtle creaks of hull compression. Webb donned his headset, eyes closed, listening to the ocean. This was his craft, not seeing but hearing. The sea spoke in layers. Surface noise from wind and waves, biological sound from dolphins and shrimp, mechanical noise from distant shipping. Somewhere in that cacophony might be the faint trace of a submarine trying to disappear. Contact. The call came 90 minutes into the patrol. Buoy 7 had registered a low-frequency transit, possibly a diesel engine cycling or ballast tank operation. Webb isolated the frequency, applying filters to strip away ambient noise. Bearing 095, range approximately 12 nautical miles. Single broadband contact, intermittent. Could be biologics, could be mechanical. His hands moved across the console, comparing the acoustic signature against known Iranian submarine profiles stored in the system's database. Chin leaned over his shoulder. Confidence level? 40%. It's not a merchant, wrong frequency profile. But in these conditions, I can't rule out a fishing trawler with bad engine mounts. The Orion banked toward the contact, descending to 200 feet. The radar operator, Petty Officer First Class Ramirez, swept the surface with the APS, 137 radar, looking for periscope wakes or snorkel masts, the telltale signs of the submarine running shallow to recharge batteries. Negative radar contact. See State 2, light chop. If he's there, he's deep. Reeves made the call. Deploy active buoys. Let's go active and see what moves. Active sonobuoys work differently. They ping the ocean with sound waves, listening for echoes bouncing off solid objects. It was louder, more intrusive, and it revealed the hunter's position. But in shallow, noisy waters, sometimes you had to make noise to hear through it. The active buoys detonated their acoustic charges, sending powerful pulses through the water column. Webb watched his display, waiting for returns. There, a solid echo metallic signature, moving southwest at approximately 4 knots. The computer analyzed the return. Object length roughly 230 feet, cylindrical profile, depth estimated at 180 feet. Close to the Gulf's muddy bottom. Submarine contact confirmed. Designating Master 1. He's running deep and slow, trying to blend with the thermal layer. Webb's voice carried the satisfaction of a hunter who just spotted his prey's tracks. But confirmation was only the beginning. Now came the hardest part. Tracking a nearly silent submarine through one of the most acoustically challenging environments on Earth, maintaining contact for hours or days without losing the thread. The cat-and-mouse game had started, and both sides knew the stakes extended far beyond this single aircraft and submarine. In the cramped confines of the Orion, 12 Americans were now responsible for maintaining eyes, or rather, ears, on potential threat to global oil supplies, American naval assets, and regional stability. Outside the aircraft windows, the Gulf stretched endlessly, deceptively calm. Beneath those waters, an Iranian submarine commander was making his own calculations, unaware that his boat's faint acoustic signature had just been tagged by the most sophisticated submarine hunting system ever deployed. The mission clock started. The hunt would not end until the submarine surfaced, returned to port, or slipped away into the depths. Hour 6 of the mission, and Lieutenant Commander Reeves could feel fatigue creeping into the crew's precision. The Orion had been circling the submarine's last known position for 3 hours, dropping sonobuoy after sonobuoy. each one adding another listening post to the underwater surveillance net. But Master One, the Iranian Kilo, had gone silent. "He's shut down everything non-essential," Webb muttered, staring at his acoustic display where the submarine's signature had faded to almost nothing. "Running on battery, minimal speed, probably sitting in a thermal layer where the temperature gradient bends our sonar away. Smart." The Persian Gulf's oceanography made conventional submarine hunting nearly impossible. Unlike the deep Atlantic, where Cold War submariners played their deadly games, the Gulf's shallow depth, high salinity, and extreme temperature variations created acoustic blind zones where submarines could effectively vanish. Add the constant rumble of commercial shipping, supertankers, container ships, dhows, and you had an environment where even the most advanced sensors struggled. Chun pulled up the tactical plot, showing their sonobuoy field. 43 sensors deployed in overlapping patterns, creating a detection grid across 18 square miles of ocean. Each buoy had a battery life of 8 hours before it sank uselessly to the bottom. They were burning through sensors at an unsustainable rate. "Taco, we got a fuel decision coming up," the pilot called from the cockpit. "We can give you another 90 minutes on station. Then we need RTB for refueling. Relief aircraft launches in 40 minutes. The handoff between patrol aircraft was always the most dangerous moment in submarine tracking. In that gap, even 30 minutes, a submarine could slip the net entirely, changing course, changing depth, disappearing into the Gulf's acoustic chaos. The Iranians knew American patrol patterns. They were counting on exactly this vulnerability. Negative on RTB, Reeves decided, will extend to fuel minimums. "I want continuous coverage until the relief bird has Master One locked." It was a calculated risk. Extending patrol meant potentially landing with insufficient fuel reserves if weather deteriorated or the airfield closed. But losing this submarine meant starting the entire hunt from scratch, assuming they could even find again. Webb suddenly straightened. "Transient, buoy 23, bearing 270. His fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating the sound. Metallic clanked, possibly hull-mounted equipment. Range 8 miles. The Orion banked hard, racing toward the contact. Ramirez swept the radar again. Nothing on the surface. But below, something had made noise. Submarines were quiet, but not silent. Every mechanical system, every hatch, every crew member moving through the pressure hull created tiny acoustic signatures. The art ASW was hearing those whispers through the roar. "Deploy active buoys on my mark," Chin ordered, planning the pattern. "We go loud, force them to react." 3 active sonobuoys hit the water in a triangle pattern around the contact. Their acoustic hammers slammed through the Gulf, powerful enough to rattle fish and send dolphins fleeing. The return echoes painted a picture. Solid object, depth 160 feet, length consistent with a Kilo-class boat, moving northwest at 3 knots. "Got him," Webb confirmed. "Master One is prosecuting toward the strait. He's making his move." The tactical situation crystallized. The Iranian submarine wasn't conducting a routine patrol. It was positioning itself along the shipping lanes that funneled through the Strait of Hormuz. From that position, a single Kilo could threaten tanker traffic, create an exclusion zone, or worse, target American warships transiting the choke point. "Calm, get a flash message to Navcent," Reeves ordered. "Iranian submarine heading toward the strait, current position." He read off the coordinates. Request tasking priority and updated ROE. The communications operator hunched over his encrypted satellite terminal, typing rapidly. In the age of the global war on terror, submarine hunting had become as much about intelligence and political decisions as about acoustics and tactics. Every track, every position report fed into a larger picture being monitored at Fifth Fleet headquarters, at Navcent, at the Pentagon, possibly in the Situation Room itself. The reply came back within minutes, faster than expected, which meant senior leadership was watching closely. Navcent confirms priority 1 tasking. Maintain continuous track. Barrier patrol aircraft being repositioned to support. SSN assets being considered for prosecution. SSN attack submarine. The Navy was considering deploying one of its own fast attack boats to trail the Iranian Kilo. That meant Washington viewed this as serious enough to risk an underwater confrontation. But that would take hours, possibly days. Right now, the only American eyes on this submarine were the 12 people aboard this aging turboprop aircraft, circling at 300 feet above hostile waters. Relief aircraft on station in 15 minutes, the pilot reported. We need to coordinate the handoff. This was the critical moment. Chun began the brief over secure radio, passing every detail to the incoming P-3 crew. Master One's last three positions, its speed and course, the acoustic signature profile, the sonobuoy pattern still active in the water. The incoming aircraft would need to establish its own detection net before the current buoys died, creating a seamless web of surveillance. Webb continued tracking, his concentration absolute. The submarine had increased speed slightly. 5 knots now, which meant more noise, but also faster progress towards objective. He could hear the rhythmic pulse of the 7-bladed propeller, the faint whine of electric motors. The Kilo's captain was making a calculated bet. Speed versus stealth. He thinks he's clear, Webb said quietly. Probably doesn't know we've been on him this whole time. That was the advantage of airborne ASW. From 300 feet up, dropping past the buoys miles away, the P-3 crew could track a submarine without the target ever knowing it was being hunted. Unlike surface ships that churn the water with their own propellers or submarines that betray themselves with active sonar, the Orion was a ghost. Watching, listening, reporting. The relief aircraft checked in. VP-9 has Master One on sonar, bearing 265, range 6 miles. We have the track. Chin exhaled slowly. The handoff was complete. Master One wouldn't escape during the transition. VP-16, you're clear to RTB. Outstanding work. As the Orion banked toward Bahrain, climbing away from the Gulf's humid air, Reeves looked back at his crew. They'd been airborne for 8 hours, most of it intense concentration, hunting an adversary they could only hear, never see. This was modern warfare. Technical, patient, invisible to the world. But as they approached the airfield, the secure radio crackled again. The message was brief, classified, and changed everything. All VP assets, navs and sends. Second submarine contact reported departing Bandar Abbas. Designate Master 2. Assess 2-boat coordinated operation in progress. Increase patrol frequency immediately. Reeves and Chin exchanged looks. 1 submarine was a probe, a test of American surveillance. 2 submarines meant a planned operation, possibly practice for closing the strait, possibly preparation for something worse. The Orion touched down, taxied to the flight line, but there would be no rest. Within 3 hours, they'd be airborne again, hunting in the acoustic maze of the Persian Gulf, where the line between surveillance and combat grew thinner every day. Day 4 of the operation, and the hunt had evolved into something far more complex than anyone had anticipated. Master 1 and Master 2, the 2 Iranian Kilo-class submarines, were no longer simply patrolling. They were maneuvering with purpose, executing what Navy intelligence assessed as a coordinated denial operation designed to demonstrate Iran's ability to control access to the Strait of Hormuz. The briefing room at NSA Bahrain had transformed into a joint operations center. Rear Admiral Hank Costello, commander of Carrier Strike Group 3, stood before a wall-sized display showing real-time positions of every military and commercial vessel in the region. The USS John C. Stennis, a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, glowed at the center of a protective screen of destroyers and cruisers. Converging on that formation, from different vectors, were the 2 Iranian submarines. Gentlemen, this is no longer a tracking exercise, Costello said bluntly. Intelligence assesses that Tehran is positioning these boats to threaten freedom of navigation operations. CENTCOM has authorized us to move to forcible surfacing protocols if either submarine enters the carrier's defensive perimeter. Lieutenant Commander Reeves felt the weight of that statement. Forcible surfacing, using active sonar, depth charges, or torpedoes to force a submarine to surface, was one step away from open combat. It hadn't been done since the Cold War standoffs with Soviet boats shadowing American carriers. Sir, what's the political guidance? Chin asked. If we force them up, we're creating an international incident. The incident already exists, Costello replied. Two attack submarines maneuvering aggressively near a carrier strike group during heightened tensions. State Department is working the diplomatic channel, but our job is ensuring those boats don't get into firing position. VP assets will maintain continuous track. SSN Providence is now Trail Master 1. We need your birds on Master 2. Reeves nodded. The fast attack submarine Providence, a Los Angeles-class boat, could trail the Iranian kilos silently, matching its every move underwater. But Master 2 remained the P-3's responsibility, and that submarine had been playing a different game. 6 hours later, Reeves's crew was back on station, flying a barrier pattern across the western approaches to the strait. Master 2 had been moving erratically, sprinting at high speed, then going silent, changing depth and course unpredictably. It was classic counter-surveillance maneuvering, designed to break tracking or force pursuing aircraft to burn through sonobuoys trying to reacquire contact. Senior Chief Webb had his headset pressed tight against his ears, filtering through the acoustic data from 16 active buoys. The Strait of Hormuz at night was a carnival of noise, massive supertankers transiting the shipping lanes, their propellers creating thunderous cavitation. Fishing boats with poorly maintained engines, the biological chorus of the Gulf's ecosystem. And somewhere in that chaos, a 3,000-ton diesel submarine running silent. "I've got nothing," Webb admitted, frustration evident. Last firm contact was 40 minutes ago. He could be anywhere in a 30-square-mile box. Chin studied the tactical plot. Thinking like a submarine captain, Master 2's last known course had been east-northeast, toward the narrowest part of the strait where the shipping lanes compressed into a corridor less than 2 miles wide. If you want to create maximum disruption with minimum assets, that's where you position. "He's going for the traffic lanes," she said. "Deploy a new buoy line across the strait's western entrance. He has to pass through there." The Orion banked south, descending to 200 feet. The sonobuoy launchers cycled through a new pattern, 24 sensors forming a detection barrier across the choke point. Each buoy splashed into the dark water, its hydrophone array extending downward, listening. They didn't have to wait long. "Contact. Multiple buoys. Bearing 090. Strong mechanical transit. Sound like ballast tank operation." Webb was already analyzing the signature. "He's changing depth rapidly. Coming shallow." That was unusual. Submarines avoided shallow depths in the strait. Less water to hide in, greater risk of detection. Unless the submarine wasn't trying to hide anymore. Ramirez, radar sweep. If he's shallow, he might be preparing to snorkel. The radar operator focuses beam on the contact area. The APS 137 radar was powerful enough to detect a periscope cutting through the waves at 6 miles. The screen showed dozens of surface contacts, merchant ships, fishing vessels, patrol boats. Then there, a small contact barely distinguishable from sea clutter, moving at 5 knots through the shipping lane. Possible snorkel mass, bearing 092, range for miles. Contact is in the middle of the westbound traffic lane. Reeves leaned forward, studying the display. Master 2 had positioned itself directly in the path of outbound tanker traffic. Ships carrying crude oil from Saudi Arabia and Kuwait to global markets. The submarine's periscope and snorkel masts would be visible to passing ships, a deliberate show of presence. "He's sending a message," Reeves said. "He wants us, and every tanker captain in the Gulf, to know he's there." Chun grabbed the radio. "Navson, VP-16. Master 2 has surfaced in the westbound shipping lane. Strait of Hormuz. Confirming deliberate positioning to threaten commercial traffic. Request guidance." The response was immediate. "VP-16, Providence is being directed to intercept Master 2. Maintain visual contact. Do not prosecute with weapons unless fired upon. Navson is coordinating with IRGCN counterparts to de-escalate. IRGCN, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. The Iranians had their own command structure, often operating independently from the regular Iranian Navy. Coordinating with them was always unpredictable. The Orion descended to 500 feet, close enough to visually identify the submarine. Through the cockpit windows, Reeves could see the Kilo's black sail breaking the surface. seawater streaming off its hull. The submarine was running with its diesel engines exposed, recharging batteries, seemingly unconcerned by the American patrol aircraft circling overhead. Then things escalated. "Sir, I've got a radar contact approaching from the northeast. High speed, multiple small craft." Ramirez's voice carried new tension. "Looks like IRGC fast boats, at least 6 of them, converging on our position." The Iranian Revolutionary Guard's naval tactics relied on swarm attacks. Fast, armed speedboats that could overwhelm larger warships through sheer numbers. They'd harassed American vessels before, playing dangerous games of chicken in these crowded waters. "They're protecting the submarine," Chin realized, "creating a screen so we can't get close." The fast boats, Swedish-designed Bagamar speedboats modified with machine guns and rocket launchers, raced toward the submarine's position at 40 knots, creating a defensive perimeter. The message was clear: approach the submarine, and you'll have to go through us. Reeves got on the radio. "Navson, VP-16. Iranian fast attack craft are screening Master 2. Situation is becoming confrontational. Advise. VP-16, disengage a safe distance. Do not provoke engagement. Providence will handle submarine prosecution. Your mission is surveillance only." The Orion climbed away, maintaining visual contact from 2 miles out. Below, the scene looked like a standoff from another era. An Iranian submarine surfaced defiantly in international shipping lanes, surrounded by armed speedboats, while an American patrol aircraft circled overhead, and an attack submarine closed from below. Then Webb's voice cut through the tension. "Master 1 just went active. He's pinging. Range to Stennis Strike Group, 12 miles. Master 1, the other Iranian submarine, the one being trailed by Providence, had turned on its active sonar, broadcasting powerful acoustic pulses directly toward the American aircraft carrier. It was the underwater equivalent of radar locking a target, the step before weapon launch. Every naval aviator knew what that meant. The Iranians were demonstrating they had the carrier in range, that they could target it if they chose. This had crossed from surveillance to a military crisis. All stations, Navcent. Flash traffic. CENTCOM has elevated threat condition to Delta. All units prepare for possible hostile action. VP assets maintain surveillance but stay outside weapons engagement zones. Reeves looked at his crew. They were surveillance specialists, not fighter pilots. Their job was to watch and report, not fight. But in this moment, in this narrow waterway where a quarter of the world's oil passed daily, the line between observer and participant had vanished. Below them, Master 2 submerged again, escorted by the fast boats. Master 1 continued pinging, its active sonar illuminating the Stennis Strike Group. 2 submarines, 1 aircraft carrier, dozens of warships and aircraft, all maneuvering in a space smaller than some American cities. The acoustic maze had become a potential battlefield, and everyone was waiting to see who would blink first. Day 7. The crisis that had simmered for nearly a week was about to break, or defuse. Lieutenant Commander Reeves stood in the operations center at NSA Bahrain, watching 3 large-screen displays simultaneously. Satellite feeds of the Strait of Hormuz, acoustic tracking data from both submarines, and a secure video link to Fifth Fleet headquarters where admirals and intelligence officers were making decisions that could reshape Middle Eastern geopolitics. The situation had reached an inflection point. Master 1 and Master 2 had maintained their threatening positions for 72 hours, long enough to make Iran's point about controlling the strait, but not long enough to force an American military response. It was brinkmanship at its most calculated, a game both sides had played before, but never with as much tension and this many assets in close proximity. Latest intelligence assessment, the Fifth Fleet Operations officer said via video link, is that Tehran is looking for an exit ramp. They've demonstrated capability and resolve. Now they need to de-escalate without appearing weak. We need to give them that opportunity. Rear Admiral Costello, whose carrier strike group had been under implicit threat for days, wasn't convinced. "Admiral, those boats are still in position. Master 1 pinged us again 6 hours ago. Until they withdraw to Iranian territorial waters, we have to assume hostile intent." "Agreed, but we're also coordinating through Swiss intermediaries." The Iranians are signaling they'll withdraw if we reduce the carrier presence and halt what they call provocative overflights. That's diplomatic speak for pulling back the P-3 patrols. Reeves felt the weight of that statement. For a week, VP-16 and other patrol squadrons had maintained continuous surveillance, tracking every submarine movement, burning through sonobuoys and flight hours at an unsustainable rate. The crews were exhausted, but pulling back meant potentially losing track of the submarines, giving Iran operational freedom in the Gulf. "Sir, if we reduce patrols, we go blind." Reeves said, "We won't know where those boats are or what they're doing. We're aware of the risk, Commander. But right now, preventing this from escalating into shooting is the priority. Providence will maintain trail on Master 1. We're pulling the P-3s back to over-the-horizon surveillance only. If either submarine makes aggressive moves, you'll re-engage. Otherwise, we give them space to withdraw." It was the kind of compromise that prevented wars but satisfied no one. The military wanted definitive resolution, force the submarines to surface or leave. The diplomats wanted de-escalation at any cost. The reality would be somewhere in between, a managed withdrawal, saving face for both sides, leaving the fundamental tensions unresolved. Reeves returned to his aircraft 6 hours later for what was designated as a final close patrol mission. After this flight, the P-3s would pull back to long-range surveillance, monitoring from 100 miles out rather than directly overhead. It felt like abandoning the hunt halfway through. Senior Chief Webb was already at his station when Reeves boarded. The senior enlisted man had barely slept in 7 days, surviving on coffee and the adrenaline of the chase. But his acoustic displays told a new story. Master 2 is moving, Webb reported, bearing east-northeast, speed 6 knots, depth 180 feet. He's heading home. Chun pulled up the track. The Iranian submarine was indeed withdrawing, following a course back toward Bandar Abbas. After days of aggressive positioning, something had changed. Either the diplomatic channel had worked, or Tehran had made its point and decided to preserve its assets rather than risk losing them in a confrontation. What about Master 1? Providence reports trail is maintained, but Master 1 has also changed course. No longer pointing at the carrier group. He's withdrawing, too. The tension that had gripped the crew for days began to ease, replaced by a different feeling, and a climax. They'd spent a week hunting these submarines, maintaining perfect tracks, preventing them from achieving tactical surprise. Now both boats were simply going home. The crisis defused not by military action, but by political calculation. Navson confirms both submarines are withdrawing. The radio crackled. Continue surveillance until they enter Iranian territorial waters, then RTB. Mission success VP-16. You've done outstanding work. The Orion climbed to 1,000 feet, maintaining visual contact with Master 2's periscope as the submarine transited east. Below, the Strait of Hormuz looked deceptively peaceful. Supertankers moving in orderly lanes, fishing boats working the shallows, the water reflecting the late afternoon sun. No indication that for a week this had been the most dangerous waterway on Earth. Reeves thought about the bigger picture. This hunt, this week-long cat-and-mouse game, wouldn't make headlines. There had been no explosions, no dramatic rescues, no combat footage for the evening news. Just patient, technical surveillance work, done by professionals who understood that preventing wars was often more important than winning them. How many sonobuoys did we go through? Reeves asked Chun. She checked the log. 347. Record for the squadron. 347 listening devices, dropped into the Gulf, each one adding a data point to the acoustic picture. Thousands of hours of analysis, filtering signal from noise. The invisible architecture of modern naval warfare. Webb removed his headset as Master 2 crossed into Iranian waters, the submarine's signature fading as it approached protective cover of its home port. That's it. He's home. We're done. But Reeves knew they weren't done. Not really. This had been a rehearsal, a proof of concept. Iran had demonstrated it could deploy submarines into the strait, threaten American assets, and control the timing of escalation and de-escalation. The United States had demonstrated it could track those submarines continuously, deny them surprise, and maintain pressure without firing a shot. Both sides had learned valuable lessons. The question was what they'd do with that knowledge next time tensions flared. The Orion banked toward Bahrain, the Gulf stretching endlessly below. In the cargo bay, the sonobuoy launchers were empty, the acoustic sensors expended. In the cockpit, the crew was exhausted but professional, already thinking about the debrief, the after-action report, the lessons learned. VP-16, you're cleared for landing. Welcome home. As the aircraft descended toward the runway, Reeves looked back at his crew one last time. Webb was securing his gear, methodical as always. Chin was already typing notes for the mission report. The pilots were running through landing checks. Professionals, all of them, who just completed one of the most consequential surveillance missions of the War on Terror era, tracking enemy submarines in hostile waters, preventing escalation, maintaining America's strategic advantage through technical excellence and unrelenting focus. The wheels touched down, and the Orion rolled to a stop. In Washington, diplomats would take credit for defusing the crisis. In Tehran, military officers would claim victory for standing up to American pressure. But the people who actually made the difference, the crews of VP-16 and the other patrol squadrons, the sonar operators and tactical coordinators who turn acoustic whispers into actionable intelligence. They'd simply file their reports, rest for a few hours, and prepare for the next mission. Because in the Persian Gulf in 2007, the next crisis was always just over the horizon. 3 months later, in a classified briefing at the Pentagon, a senior Navy intelligence officer would present the lessons learned from Operation Silent Hunter. The brief would note that American ASW capabilities remained unmatched, that continuous surveillance could deny adversary submarines operational freedom, and that technical excellence could prevent conflicts from escalating into warfare. The brief would not mention the exhaustion, the tension, the hours of patient hunting through acoustic noise. It wouldn't capture the moment when Webb first identified Master One's signature, or the relief when both submarines turned for home. Those details would live only in the memories of the people who'd been there, flying low over hostile waters, listening to the ocean's secrets. But they would remember. And the next time Iranian submarines deployed into the Gulf, and there would be a next time, they'd be ready to hunt again. The War on Terror had many fronts. Some involved special operations forces kicking down doors in Ramadi. Some involved drone strikes in Pakistan's tribal areas. And some involved Navy crews flying aged turboprops over dangerous waters, using Cold War technology and modern innovation to track adversaries who thought they could hide in the shallow seas. All of them mattered. All of them made the difference. The hunt was over until the next one began.